Who's the person you're being? Are you satisfied? Welcome to Be the Person, a podcast for the brave and the curious. I'm your host, Annie Randall. Join me as we delve into informative topics and ask unexpected questions to unlock your best self. This week, I'm taking you on a solo cast journey. It was about a new perspective change I recently had. And to be honest, when I recorded this the first time, I cried a lot. And it's really vulnerable. I re-recorded it, no tears, but I wanted to share this story with you because if you're in something like a tough season, I think this message will be for you and it will really resonate. And that could be a relationship, a marriage, a job, your health. We all go through hard things. So this is a personal story that I think will really help change your perspective. Join me on this journey. Recently, Jeff and I went to the Global Leadership Summit, and there were four little words that we walked away with that really changed our perspective. And before I tell you what those words are, let me give you a little backstory so they make sense. I have been going to the Global Leadership Summit probably for the past 20 years. Like, I love it. It happens every August. It's a leadership event and it's televised around the world, but it happens live out of Chicago. And I've always wanted to go. So this year was a bucket list item. We got to go in person, which was super fun. But it has special meaning to me because back in 2013, we were thinking about opening OrangeTheory and wondering if that was the right move. Because honestly, it was a really scary move. When OrangeTheory was not a known franchise and it was putting everything we owned on the line for a company that we didn't really know if it would work and in a community that we didn't know anyone. But I walked into that summit and the main theme was be strong and courageous. It's Joshua 1:9. And that just resonated with me. And when somebody's talking, maybe they're giving a speech or it's the pastor in church, and you feel like the message is direct to you, that's how it was. When I was in that conference, it was just like they were saying to me, Annie, be strong and courageous. And I walked out of there and I had tears streaming down my face. And I knew like we were supposed to open OrangeTheory. To me, it's never been just about a business. It really has been about a mission. I didn't want to own a gym, but I wanted to build a community. That was really important to me. And so we moved forward with that. A few years later, I went to the Global Leadership again. And I don't remember exactly what year this was, but it was the speech on taking people from here, where they are today, to there, where they want to go. And there can be so many different heres and there's. It could be your health journey, like you're going from where you are now to where you want to go. Or it could be a career journey, a school journey, all of it. But as a leader, often you take people from where they are today, they're here, to where they want to go. And partway through, they're in that middle ground. And it can be hard because you're still not there and you want to be there, but you can't go back to here either. So, as a leader, just continuing to guide people through that has always stuck with me is that middle ground to keep people moving. So, one of the speakers at the Leadership Summit this year, it wasn't even her main thing. What she said was, you're in the middle. And those four words really were super impactful. And it's crazy because there were several speakers, all very, very good on day one. Jeff and I got in the car. We went out to Chicago Pizza. And on the way home, I asked him, like, what really stood out to you today? And he said those same words, like when she talked about being in the middle. And I think it was so impactful because one, I remember the here to there story from that conference. And two, what it really means is this isn't the end. And I think that is so powerful because when you're in the middle, sometimes it feels like the end. Sometimes you want to just be out of the middle. You're like, how long is this middle? It seems like this giant Harry Potter book that you're never going to get through. And I'm just going to tell you about a few of the middles I feel like I'm in. And it's not to share or sympathy or anything like that. It's just for your own context of like, I think everybody's in the middle of something. In the middle is just hard. It's where character is developed, it's where you find grit to keep going. For me, one of my core values is pray through. And honestly, it's probably where that one comes out the most is the middle. Um, but it could be relationships, jobs, businesses, health, all of it. There's middle ground. But that tiny mind shift to me wasn't a tiny mind shift. That's a big mind shift. But when I think about those four tiny words, it created a really big mind shift. And that's what I want to share today. Because I think if we can make that mind shift, it makes that middle ground. We remember that it's temporary, it's not the end game. So, one of the things I've talked about a few times on the podcast is my hip. I had my labrum replaced about 2.5 years ago. I love to run. I wanted to get back to running and be able to do it pain free. I needed the surgery for a long time and finally decided to do it. And I knew the rehab was long. It's like a year rehab, but I did everything. And at the end, I still couldn't run. And then I ended up tearing my hamstring this past January, and I had to stop all physical activity. And that was really, really hard for me because this is how I deal with stress. Like, I love to work out. I love to walk my dog. I love to talk to people. I've even loved to love yoga classes. Even though I love Orange Theory much, much more, I have loved yoga classes and I had to stop it all. And honestly, during that time, I was just like, okay, God, what do you want me to learn out of this? Because I feel like you could heal it in a minute. At the same time, I was going through vertigo, and that was just horrible. Of like the world would start spinning around at random. And both of those have been really long journeys of like a lot of rehab, a lot of doctors, a lot of trying things. And I know people have much more severe things as far as physical go. But for me, it felt like a long journey. It still does because I'm not out of them yet. I thought I was out of the vertigo one. I looked left a couple weeks ago and the world started spinning. And so I think it was just a good reminder, though, of one asking the question, what am I supposed to learn from this? I've learned a lot about my health and a lot about how to take care of my body in whole different ways than I thought about. I've also learned to meditate. And for a girl that couldn't sit still for 5 minutes this January, that's been a really big change. And honestly, it's been a really, really great change that I have loved and a really cool journey of what meditation does for your brain. Um, but if I'm honest, like the middle is hard. I want to be able to run. And 2.5 years in, I can't. I couldn't even walk for a long time very well. And now I'm back to being able to walk, but not for exercise. So that's been a journey. So if you're in the middle of something health related, I get you. I have a new protein bar that I just love. Aloha protein bars. They have tons of flavors. My favorite is peanut butter cup. It gives me my chocolate fix for the day. It's gluten and dairy free. It's plant based, which I know you're thinking that does not sound good, but it is delicious. It comes in snack size, regular size, and I have both in my cabinet at all times. Check out the link in the show notes for 20% off your first order. The other one is a relationship. You know, our relationship with one of our kiddos has been strained for quite a while. And like as a mom, as a parent, you just want that relationship to be strong and healthy and solid. And not that it's not solid, but it's just not super connected. And I think, a lot of teenagers, a lot of parents go through this, but when you're in it, and we've been in it for a number of years, it feels like um, it might be forever. And it's just like such a good reminder of this is the middle. This isn't the end. So if you're in that hard relationship, just know that it's not the end. It could be marriage, it could be a friendship, it could be a relationship with a kid, but it's not the end. You just keep taking steps of moving forward, loving them how you can, and also setting boundaries where you need to. The last one might be a business or a job. That's been the case for me too. One of the hardest things I've had to do was take our Orange Theories through COVID. It was really, really challenging of just feeling like I was upsetting people all of the time. It was hard to lay off our staff at the beginning to bring them all back on. But the part I wasn't expecting, through that time, I knew it would be hard, but it has continued. And any of my business owners out there, I think, can attest like running a small business has always been hard. Running a small business now in this economic environment is really, really hard. And it's been challenging. I've had to go back several times on my core values to say, can I keep doing this? Because one of those core values is choose joy. And it doesn't mean choose joy when everything is going well. It means like choose joy regardless of the circumstance. And that can be really, really hard. Because it's been several years of just that being in the middle, I think, with Orange Theory of like, we're ready to grow these studios. We're ready to show we have an amazing community, an amazing place for people to make life change, but that hasn't necessarily happened. But again, knowing this is the middle and this isn't where our studios end as a perspective change has been really helpful for me as a leader in my own mind, but to be able to frame that for our team as well, because they feel it on the day to day. Like they're working so hard, but yet maybe the membership numbers or the class sizes don't reflect that. So those are just a couple things where I feel like I'm in the middle and I don't share again for anything but other than maybe you can relate and not feel alone because I think everybody has their middle ground and yours I'm sure looks different than mine. But I think knowing that we're not alone in the journey is super impactful as well. And I'll give you a few tactics that I've learned to keep going out of the middle, to get from here to there in the journey. A lot of these have to do with faith for me. And sometimes I'm always hesitant about sharing this because I never want to be pushy on beliefs. But yet, I think people also want people that are authentic. And I can't share who I am without this piece because it's just part of who I am. I'm not somebody that just goes to church on Sunday and then doesn't think about God the rest of the week. Like this is it's part of my life strategy. And honestly, it's part of my business strategy is prayer. And one of those core values is to pray through. And the second one I mentioned was choose joy. There's several others, but if you don't know your core values, I would really write those down. I always keep them in rocks. I wrote them on little rocks and I keep them in a little bag in my underwear drawer. And you guys, I pull these things out when I have a really hard decision to make. I know them, but it also just having that visual to look at them, like what is the thing that is authentic to you? What is the choice you need to make to keep going? So that's one is just establishing and evaluating core values. The other thing is making the decision not to quit, no matter how hard it gets. Whether it's in the relationship, in the business, like with your health, you may have to pivot and you may have to try a lot of new things, but also deciding not to quit there. One of the things that really has helped me too is leaning back on like, what are the promises of God? That has been something I spent a whole year looking at. Like, what does the Bible really promise? What does it say in there that God promises us? Because a lot of times I think we look at hard times and think, why is God doing this to me? But what he never promised was the road would be easy. In fact, he promises almost the opposite. Like in James 1, he says, when you meet trials, not like if you meet trials, you're going to meet them. And he says several other things like that throughout the Bible. But one of the things too is that I don't feel like I'm ever alone. Isaiah 41:13 is one of the verses I just love. And it says, "For I am the Lord your God who takes hold of your right hand and says to you, 'Do not fear, I will help you.'" So whenever I'm making one of those decisions or I'm like, oh, I'm still in this middle ground of like, I want to be done with this. I want to be healed. I want the relationship to be better. I want the business to be where it was pre COVID. Like, I remember I'm not in this alone. And one of the other verses that has really stuck out to me that is more the how came at the beginning of this year. And it was in Jeremiah 29:11 is the verse I always have told my kids. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper and not harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. And the how to comes right after that. In verse 12, it says, then you will call on me and come and pray to me, and I will listen to you. You will seek me and find me when you seek me with your whole heart. And I think that's just such a great reminder for me of like, God wants us to come to him. He wants to listen, and it's our job to seek with our whole heart. So that has been helpful. And the last thing is songs. Songs for me are really helpful. And on Spotify, I have a 2024 playlist. And it's honestly the playlist that I will walk to and often pray to. There's only 3 songs on there, but it resets my brain into this like prayer mode to say, what are the things that I really want to pray for right now? And then reminding myself, one of the songs on there is Good Plans. Like God has good plans. This isn't the end game. And then just a song about not quitting. So those are all super helpful for me because God says he can give us more than we can ever hope or imagine. That's in Ephesians 3:20. So, although it seems like if you're in the forest, you're going to be in that forest forever, you're not. You're in that middle ground and it isn't the end. You're going to come out of it. It may take a lot longer than you want. It may look different than how you thought it would, but this isn't the end. And for me, again, that was just so helpful to hear that change in perspective. And that's why I wanted to share it with you today. If it resonates with you, I love that. Please share it with somebody that you think it could help. And also, if you would give the podcast a 5-star review, it would help grow and more listeners to hear this content. I would so appreciate it. Thanks today for listening. It means so much.